pieces, and people still line up to see her. That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere, people will wait in line to see.
Rachel Zegler just got hit with the final nail in Disney's billion-dollar coffin. And this time, there's no press tour, no red carpet, no Instagram live stream that can save her. A movie that was supposed to redefine a timeless fairy tale has now become the very symbol of everything audiences are rejecting. And no one's taking a harder hit than Rachel herself. What started as an ambitious reimagining of Snow White quickly spiraled into a global embarrassment that Disney is now quietly trying to erase. Not delay, not rework. Erase. Disney, a studio that once poured hundreds of millions into reboots like Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King, has now begun pulling Snow White off shelves and screens like it never even existed. We're talking about one of the most iconic titles in the Disney vault, being pulled from streaming platforms, halted in physical distribution, and ghosted in international territories. No statement, no goodbye, just gone. And while industry execs scramble to figure out what went wrong, the internet already has its answer: Rachel Zegler. The once rising star, cast as a bold and modern Snow White, now finds herself at the center of a pop culture disaster. From viral backlash and press tour flops to a public breakdown caught on camera, Rachel's journey from breakout star to Hollywood outcast is unfolding in real time, and viewers can't look away. But this isn't just about one actress. It's about what happens when a studio bets everything on an idea that never connects. It's about the price of alienating your core audience, and it's about how a meme, yes, a literal meme, can bury a multi-million-dollar movie. Because what we're witnessing now isn't just a flop, it's a total collapse of Disney's live-action legacy, and the implosion of a career that hadn't even peaked yet. So how did we get here? What pushed Snow White from fairy tale to failure? And why are insiders calling this Disney's most humiliating disaster yet? Let's start with the vanishing act that shocked even Hollywood insiders. One day it was everywhere: posters, merchandise, streaming trailers, international pre-orders, and the next, Snow White vanished. Quietly, strategically, like it was a cleanup job after a PR explosion. No press release, no apology. Disney didn't announce a removal, it executed one. Across the US, theater chains began noticing that Disney was pulling Snow White from active screening slots. Not because the run was over, but because audiences simply weren't showing up. Theater owners who were under contract to keep the film on screen began pushing back, reporting shocking stats: weekend showings that couldn't fill 10 seats, matinees drawing in less than 5 people. One theater owner even joked that the janitor had seen the film more times than paying customers. And it didn't stop there. Inside sources say that Disney's distribution team began instructing international partners to halt promotions, pull merch, and in some cases delay shipments of related products. In Lebanon, the government took it even further, banning the film outright, not just from cinemas, but from all digital and physical circulation. According to official records, Snow White never even made it onto the country's import charts. A full blackout. Even within Disney's own walls, whispers began. Projects related to Snow White were suddenly canceled. Merchandise deals were revised or scrapped. And most telling of all, Disney's internal streaming data showed catastrophic drop-off rates. Viewers who started the film weren't finishing it. Some lasted just 10 minutes before clicking away. That's not just bad, that's catastrophic. In a company where every pixel is monetized, Disney took a rare stance: erase it. They pulled content, discontinued tie-ins, and reportedly instructed marketing teams to shift their focus entirely to other projects. Even Lilo and Stitch, a film with half the budget and zero Oscar buzz, was suddenly front and center. And guess what? It was outperforming Snow White in ticket sales before even hitting full release. But the real damage wasn't done by analysts or executives. It was done by fans, or rather, the lack of them. Because while Disney hoped this reboot would modernize a classic, what they ended up with was a film so widely rejected that audiences actively avoided it. Not passively, not by accident. They chose to stay away, chose to spend their money elsewhere, chose to make it a punchline. One viral TikTok summed it up best: they gave Snow White a new dress, a new message, a new era, and no one showed up to see it. And this was just the start. Because what happened next wasn't a rumor, a critique, or a box office stat. It was a moment caught on camera, and it would turn Rachel Zegler into a meme that haunted her career. It was supposed to be a flex, a triumphant "I told you so" moment. But what Rachel Zegler walked into was a graveyard. On premiere week, with cameras rolling and flowers in hand, Rachel entered a theater screening her own movie expecting applause, celebration, a crowd. But what she found instead was silence. A handful of viewers, scattered like forgotten extras. Rows of empty chairs. No buzz, no laughter, no reaction. Just the cold hum of disappointment echoing off the wall. And it didn't take long for someone to film it. One fan in the theater panned their phone across the room during the 2 p.m. showing. "Let's see how packed it is," they whispered, trying not to laugh. The footage went viral in hours. 1, 2, they counted. Okay, 2 people, that's all. A showing that should have been buzzing with kids and families was completely deserted. Even local high school plays were getting better turnout.
Okie dokie. I am walking into Snow White, 2 p.m., now seating. Let's see how empty it is. I hope it's off the walk we go. I hope. Sound like I hear a couple of people. One, two. Okay. 2.
And the internet? It had a field day. Memes exploded overnight. Snow White and the 7 empty seats. She brought flowers to a funeral. Premiere of Snow Fright. Some fans edited her standing alone into iconic disaster scenes. Titanic sinking. Area 51, the "This is fine" meme. Others just reposted the video over sad violin music, mocking the moment with brutal captions like, "Girl boss walked so no one else had to." But the embarrassment didn't stop at the memes. The viral clip was quickly picked up by entertainment blogs, Reddit threads, and YouTube commentary channels, each one dissecting how a high-budget Disney film had reached such catastrophic levels of disinterest. Movie theaters themselves started pulling the plug early, replacing Snow White with whatever they could get. Reruns, indie films, even retro screenings. One cinema replaced it with Shrek 2 for a Friday night. It sold out. Rachel's attempts to spin the narrative only made things worse. She posted a sentimental clip to Instagram, speaking softly and emotionally. "To everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the loo in pieces." A poetic line, sure, but in context, it read like a tragic self-own. Viewers weren't hearing confidence. They were seeing a career unraveling in real time. And this moment, that single video, became the symbol of the entire film. It wasn't just a flop, it was a cultural punchline, the kind that follows you longer than bad reviews ever could. But the empty theaters were only part of the disaster, because overseas, things took a far darker turn, one that no amount of PR damage control could fix. While Snow White was struggling to fill theaters in the US, other countries weren't even giving it a chance. In Lebanon, authorities made an unprecedented move, banning the film completely, not just from theaters, not just temporarily, but from all official distribution channels. No imports, no licensing, no digital release. For them, Snow White simply didn't exist, and they weren't alone. Other international markets began expressing concerns over the film's content, casting, and tone. While Disney never publicly acknowledged the reasons, insiders say calls to cancel promotional events and ad campaigns were pouring in from multiple regions. It wasn't just bad PR, it was a global rejection. But maybe the most telling sign of collapse? The merchandise failure. Months before release, Disney tried a tried-and-true tactic. Limited merchandise drops. T-shirts, mugs, dolls, makeup kits, all branded with the new Snow White aesthetic. Usually Disney fans eat this stuff up. They line up. Resale prices spike. Scarcity drives demand. Not this time. Stores across the US reported full shelves weeks after launch. Dolls collected dust. Branded mugs sat untouched. Even clearance bins weren't moving product. In some locations, Snow White merch was being quietly removed to make space for older, more popular franchises. Internal emails from retail partners reportedly asked if Disney could take the remaining stock back. And yet, despite all this, Rachel continued doing press, confidently, almost defiantly. She told fans the movie was important, bold, and that it challenged the outdated story. But audiences weren't buying it, literally or figuratively. Meanwhile, back at Disney, reality was hitting hard. Shareholders were panicking. Box office projections were slashed. Internal reports leaked that even future reboots were now under review. And the most brutal comparison was just around the corner, a quirky little film that nobody saw coming, but that would blow Snow White out of the water like a whale made of pixels and irony. But before we get there, we need to talk about what was happening behind the scenes. Because the real problem wasn't just in ticket sales or online sentiment. It was on set, and it was about to leak in the most public, career-damaging way possible. As the box office numbers crumbled and the memes multiplied, the public assumed Rachel Zegler was simply unlucky, the face of a doomed project. But then, something started leaking from behind the scenes, and it painted a much darker picture. The first red flag came from Gal Gadot, Zegler's co-star and the film's evil queen. In a carefully worded interview, Gal didn't exactly throw Rachel under the bus, but she didn't stop it from running her over either. When asked about the backlash, she sidestepped with a diplomatic jab. There was a misalignment at the corporate level, and teamwork was something we struggled with throughout the process. Translation: this wasn't my fault.
Gal delivered the following: the most important thing when you are working on a film is teamwork, and when you have characters like the Evil Queen and Snow White, you expect teamwork to play a role in the creative process when you are trying to put something special together. We didn't really have teamwork, and there were many setbacks that we had to deal with during this entire process, and I just found that to be very exhausting.
She continued, "When you're working on something so iconic, you expect synergy. We didn't have that, and it was exhausting." Gal, a seasoned pro, didn't name names, but fans didn't need her to. The subtext was loud and clear. Then came the line that sent shockwaves through fan communities. "I'll talk about my experience when I feel comfortable." One sentence, 10,000 new rumors. Suddenly, all eyes were on the dynamic between Rachel and her co-star.
Further, I think those that follow me will be satisfied when I am more comfortable to share more details on the specifics, but for now, it's something I feel is not the right time to jump into.
And that's when things got worse, much worse. Andrew Burnap, cast as the male lead, if you could even call it that, ghosted the entire premiere. No interviews, no press events, no red carpet, not even a tweet. Speculation exploded. Some said it was scheduling, others said it was shade. But then an old press clip resurfaced. Rachel herself smirking during an event saying, "All of Andrew's scenes might get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby." Not joking. She literally said it on camera.
Those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
And as it turns out, she was right. His role was slashed, his character reduced to a background note, and by the time the final cut premiered, he was basically a ghost. Fans were stunned. Imagine putting months into a film, only to hear your lead co-star publicly shrug off your scenes like they were optional. No wonder Andrew skipped the whole thing. The vibe on set, according to anonymous crew members, wasn't just tense. It was controlling, conflicting visions, clashing egos, and constant rewrites. One insider even claimed that multiple departments were working against each other, with nobody fully aligned on what kind of film they were making. Was it a feminist reboot? A fantasy adventure? A satire? No one knew, least of all the cast, and that uncertainty spilled into the press. Interviews were awkward. Chemistry felt forced. Rachel was doing most of the talking, and the more she talked, the more it backfired. But while the cast was unraveling in public, Disney was making decisions behind closed doors. And their next move wasn't just shocking, it was a declaration that the live-action reboot era might be over altogether. Disney had a plan, a roadmap, a billion-dollar blueprint built on nostalgia. After Snow White, the next jewel in the crown was going to be Tangled, a live-action reboot with all the trimmings, giant budget, streaming rollout, a global press tour. And rumor had it, Rachel Zegler was at the top of the list to play Rapunzel. Then it disappeared. No teaser, no casting announcements, no press releases. It didn't even get a quiet delay. It was just erased from internal schedules, gone like a whisper. Insiders say the decision came fast, and the reason was obvious. Disney had watched the fallout from Snow White in real time, and the message from audiences was clear. They weren't buying what Rachel was selling. And more importantly, they didn't want her as the face of another iconic franchise. But this wasn't just about Rachel. It was about damage control. A Tangled reboot would have required another massive budget, new sets, new effects, a full-scale marketing campaign, all centered around an actress whose image was now deeply in question. And Disney wasn't about to roll those dice again, not after hemorrhaging money and goodwill. The quiet cancellation of Tangled was, in many ways, the clearest sign that the studio was pulling the plug on its entire reboot strategy. Behind the scenes, execs reportedly shifted focus back to animation and to original content with less cultural baggage. In other words, they wanted out of the live-action minefield. And Rachel, she wasn't just being passed over, she was being actively avoided. Industry chatter began to surface. Nothing confirmed, of course, but too widespread to ignore. Casting directors hesitant to bring her in. Studios worried about PR fallout. Creative teams exploring other options. What was once framed as bold confidence had become, in Hollywood terms, a liability. The same Rachel Zegler, who was once hyped as the next big thing, had now become a cautionary tale. One exec allegedly referred to her as controlling, not because she was untalented, but because she had become the face of a failed ideology, one that audiences were rejecting at the box office. And while Rachel continued to post inspirational captions and soft-focus selfies online, something had clearly shifted. The buzz was gone. The phone, metaphorically speaking, had stopped ringing. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, they did. Because after months of promoting Snow White, Rachel decided to face her critics head-on. She went to the theater, smiling, posing reposting, trying to reclaim the narrative. And what happened next would become one of the most painfully viral moments of her career. Before the film's release, Rachel Zegler stood tall, unapologetic, assertive, and fiercely confident. She told press outlets the original Snow White was weird, outdated, and needed fixing. She promised fans a modern version of the fairy tale. She doubled down on the changes. She defended Disney's direction. And for a moment, it seemed like she truly believed the world would line up to see her take the crown.
One who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
But then the backlash started. Then the empty theaters. Then the memes. And somewhere in the middle of that storm, Rachel cracked. It started with an Instagram clip, soft lighting, close-up framing, but not the polished kind. Oh, this was raw. You could see it in her eyes. She was holding back tears. Her voice shook as she spoke, trying to reclaim dignity in a situation that had already spiraled far beyond control. To everyone who hates when I win, she said, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces. A poetic line, maybe even heartfelt, but online, it was picked apart, reposted, and dragged within hours. What should have been a moment of vulnerability became another punchline. Commenters called it Oscar-worthy damage control. Others said it looked like the monologue of someone who had just watched their career vanish in slow motion. But Rachel wasn't done. In a moment that felt more like denial than defiance, she attended a local screening of her own film. She showed up to the theater with flowers in hand, smiling for the camera, trying to spin the moment as a quiet celebration. But the footage told a different story. Rows of empty chairs, 2, maybe 3 people scattered in the dark. No cheers, no lines, no crowd, just a quiet, awkward walk through a ghost town. It was painful. Even critics who didn't like the movie admitted that watching it unfold was uncomfortable. There was something undeniably tragic about seeing a young actress, once heralded as the future of Disney, reduced to a solo press tour for a movie no one showed up to see. And while Rachel tried to stay optimistic, her silence in the following weeks said more than any caption could. No more bold interviews, no more "we're making history" energy, just quiet. But before the industry could even take a breath, another movie dropped. And it didn't just outperform Snow White, it annihilated it. If there was any hope left that Snow White could salvage its reputation, it was crushed, literally, by a bunch of talking blocks. Yes, the live-action Minecraft movie released just weeks later, a film people had mocked for years. Too childish, too weird, too risky. But guess what? It blew past Snow White's entire box office run in a single weekend. Let that sink in. A movie based on a pixelated sandbox game made more money, pulled bigger crowds, and got better reviews than a Disney princess reboot with a $200 million budget. While Snow White crawled toward triple digits, Minecraft sprinted past them before Saturday night. And the difference? Minecraft didn't come with baggage. No lectures, no finger-wagging, no interviews trying to correct the past. Just a silly, self-aware adventure film with Jack Black yelling into a mic and zombies chasing Steve across blocky terrain. Audiences didn't just prefer it, they celebrated it. Social media lit up with comparisons. Reviewers posted side-by-side reactions. One headline read, "The princess got KO'd by a pickaxe," and behind the scenes, Hollywood was paying attention. Casting directors started removing Rachel's name from shortlists. Studios stopped calling. Talent agents began reframing her upcoming availability, a polite way of saying we're backing away. Rumors spread that Disney was quietly revisiting contracts and scrapping any future projects that had her name attached. It wasn't just a failed movie anymore. It was a reputation collapse. A brand built on empowerment and boldness had become a meme, a cautionary tale, and a symbol of what happens when a studio misunderstands its audience. The once rising star was now the face of a billion-dollar misfire. And worse, that fire was still smoldering, because now the roast sessions were gearing up. South Park had already done their bit, but insiders say that The Simpsons and Family Guy writers had Rachel Zegler jokes already in the chamber. And if history has taught us anything, it's that when animated satire gets involved, there's no coming back without scars. So now the final question lingers. Can Rachel Zegler bounce back from this? Or did this movie end her story before it truly began? Maybe there's still time. Maybe another breakout role, years from now, could shift the narrative. But for now, she's in the eye of the storm. And the industry is watching.